What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Question, where you have the questions and I have the answers. And today we're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade. But before we get started, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe if you're new. I make very irregular content. What kind of content do I make? I don't fucking know anymore. Just be happy that you have content. That being said, let's get on with the video. So I wasn't originally going to make a video about this because it has been, I think, 2 weeks now since the original document was leaked. At least it feels like 2 weeks, it may have been 1 week. Anyway, it's been a while and everybody has been talking about it since the document was leaked. And everybody has already said everything that there possibly can be said about this. Nothing I'm going to say is original. You've probably heard it somewhere else. But I thought something needed to be said because of something I learned today, and I'm just gonna break down basically what Roe v. Wade is, what we think it is, and then the arguments that are being used to overturn it or try to overturn it. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding of how the judicial system works, specifically the Supreme Court, and what kind of precedents are being set or not set. So yeah, might as well get started. What is Roe v. Wade? Roe v. Wade is a Supreme Court decision which I believe was made in 1976 or 78, which is known and is being portrayed as the abortion law, or basically how conservatives would have you believe it, or how they view it, is that it is the thing that legalizes abortion. And while that is a tenet of the decision, that's not what it does. Roe v. Wade basically states that it is unethical and therefore illegal for the government, at least the federal government, to make any decisions in regards to someone's personal medical decisions. And that could include any personal medical decision, not just abortion or contraception or anything regarding pregnancy or birth control or sex. I think that's the big misconception that we have, is that Roe v. Wade has become known for protecting the right to abortion or protecting the right for contraception, but it doesn't just do that. It is based on the right to privacy, as are the decisions that legalize same-sex marriage, and the decisions that legalize interracial marriage, as well as other decisions. Basically, what the Supreme Court decided is that it is unethical for the federal government to be making decisions regarding someone's personal medical care. Which I think a lot of conservatives, if they knew that, would agree that it's not the government's choice on what kind of medical care that you get personally. And so in overturning Roe v. Wade, it wouldn't just be being able to ban abortion, it would be that basically stating that there are instances where the federal government can pry into the personal lives of its civilians and make decisions regarding what kind of medical care they have access to and what kind of medical care they can get. And the reason this was a Supreme Court decision is that the right to privacy is not explicitly stated within the Constitution. It's heavily implied, but it's not explicitly stated, which means it falls under the 9th and 10th Amendment, which means that it's up to the state or to the people. And so through the state and people, that's how we get Supreme Court decisions. The Supreme Court decision basically defines what isn't defined within the Constitution. So anytime a decision is overturned, it basically once again makes a precedent that maybe the 9th and 10th Amendments are not as strong as the rest of the Constitution is. But that's going a bit far. Basically, it's just the fact that we could overturn it is not just what people think it is. It's like, oh, we can ban abortion. And the reason that they're viewing this, that they want to ban abortion, they want to overturn Roe v. Wade, is one, they think of it as just whether it's an abortion ban or not. They don't think of it as a right to privacy because it's not taught that way, because we don't learn about landmark cases. We don't learn about, well, any American history, you know, basically after World War II. We don't learn about how and what these rulings are the Supreme Court makes. So we just see it as, oh, this is why abortion is legal in the U.S. And the reason they want to ban it is because they view abortion as unethical, because it ends a life, or it ends possibly a life. I'm not going to go into the whole debate about what constitutes a life and what constitutes a fetus or a baby or a person. They don't like abortion because they see it as unethical, which I think most people, both liberal and conservative, would agree that abortion to an extent is unethical. But that is the things that they want to overturn it because of ethics. But they don't think of it as the broader ethics of what does this mean for the government, because conservatives also want, like, they don't want governments prying in on their private lives or their right to freedom. But because they don't realize that the precedent that Roe v. Wade sets is that it is adhered to the right to privacy, they see it as banning abortion, not to a right to privacy. So if it's overturned, that means that they lose a little bit of that freedom, at least to make personal medical decisions. But also because it is saying that the right to privacy doesn't apply in some cases. That sets a precedent that anything that is ruled on based on the right to privacy can also be overturned, which is another thing that liberals are worried about, is that, if we overturn Roe v. Wade, that means the right to privacy isn't as strong as we thought it is. That means that we can overturn same-sex marriage, we can overturn interracial marriage, and any other case that is ruled upon with that right to privacy clause. So there is that debate of, this is how we got Roe v. Wade, this is why people don't want Roe v. Wade. There's a disconnect there, obviously. So now let's talk about what was stated in the leaked document and what their justification is for overturning Roe v. Wade. I think the biggest one is that abortion is not mentioned in the Constitution. That is the biggest argument that's going around, is that one of the things stated was that they can overturn it because abortion is not mentioned, and therefore if it's not mentioned, it is not applicable, it can't be ruled upon. Which is also a dangerous precedent to set, because there are many things that the Supreme Court has ruled upon and that we have passed laws about that are not mentioned in the Constitution, like women or certain racial identities, the LGBTQ plus community, people with disabilities. None of these things are mentioned in the Constitution. Technology, phones, the internet, none of these things are mentioned in the Constitution. And so if we overturn Roe v. Wade on the principle that, well, we can't rule on it because this isn't mentioned in the Constitution, that means that many modern day aspects will no longer be able to be ruled upon, or could easily be overturned because of that same, it's not mentioned in the Constitution, which, by the way, is such like a shitty precedent to do. You know, it's like, the whole point of the Constitution is we have to take, the Supreme Court is that we have to look at the Constitution, look at what's happening, and then use it to interpret that. We can't just be like, it doesn't explicitly state that, so we can't rule upon it. Like, that's the entire reason we have the 9th and 10th Amendment, is that if it's not explicitly stated, that's literally your job, is that according to the 9th and 10th Amendment, if it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, it's up to everybody else to decide. You're the everybody else. So you can't just be like, I'm not going to do my job because it's not in the Constitution. That's literally your job, is to make those decisions, because the people who wrote the Constitution didn't know what society would look like after 30 years. They're just like, people have rights. We don't know what all those rights are going to be. Here are some of the big ones, but for everything that we can't think of, we have you people to decide. So that's just such a lazy argument which I'm pretty sure isn't actually constitutional because of that whole thing I just said. But it's ridiculous, actually, that is what he went to. And another argument that I just heard today, which is what prompted me to make this video, which I don't know if Amy Coney Barrett actually said it, but I know there's a video of some firefighter saying it, and he must have got it from somewhere, I don't know. But the person said this because Amy Coney Barrett cited it in the leaked document, and once again, I don't know if that's true. I feel like if it was true, more people would be talking about it. So maybe this is just some bullshit we're attributing to Amy Coney Barrett. But the point is, people actually have said it, and people actually do believe it, no matter where it came from. But the other argument for overturning Roe v. Wade is that there is a shortage of babies available for adoption. Which, first of all, I don't think is true in the slightest. I always hear of, like, there are too many people in the foster care system, or there was just an article the other day that Texas, I think, in 2020, lost over 2,000 kids. They just didn't know where they are. So there's plenty of kids up for adoption, or at least in the foster care system. That's not the issue. So that's also a bullshit statement, but also, as someone pointed out, that this is, once again, another very dangerous precedent to make that ruling about, because it, once again, states that, oh, if there's something that is needed, we can go to borderline unethical lengths to get it. You know, because, like, if the reason they overturn Roe v. Wade is because, oh, there's a shortage of babies in America, then it's basically stating that we want to police women's bodies or uterus havers' bodies for the explicit reason of making babies, because we need more kids. Which is funny because we also have a large homeless problem and a large poverty issue, and a large incarceration issue. So it's weird because all of these arguments don't make sense legally. Legally, they don't make sense. Another thing that we also have to remember is that these are leaked documents on decisions that could be made but have not been made. The actual decision, the actual ruling, I don't think is made until like June or July, so a month or 2 months from now. So there is still a reason to believe that it could not be overturned, especially with like weak ass decisions like this. Yeah, that's just something that I had to say, is that we have to understand like how the Supreme Court works, how these people are making decisions, and what legal precedent it has. Because it's not just, oh, whether abortion is right or wrong. It means so much more because of how interconnected our government is and how full of fucking loopholes it is, because that's what these two arguments are. That's what these arguments are that's overturning it, is the fucking loopholes, basically. Because there's no ethically legal reason to ban abortion or to overturn Roe v. Wade for the reason that it was decided in the first place. You can't actually look at the phrasing of that decision and be like, oh, I think in some cases the government does have the right to make decisions about people's personal medical care. You can't look at that and say that 100% with like a, oh, I'm in the right here. So they make it about abortion, and they make it a new ethical issue. They blindside us of the actual ethical problems happening and make it focus on this thing. If it's like, oh, well, children deserve to live, children deserve a right to live, and people deserve to have families, so there's not enough babies in America for people who can't have kids to adopt, and so we need more children, but the terrible liberals are trying to take those kids away from us, and they're trying to end all these innocent lives. When in reality, that's not what would be being affected by the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I mean, it would to an extent, but no more than it is today. But it would create an environment where now legally the government can make medical decisions for you. So most likely it's not just going to be like, oh, this person's getting an abortion, arrest her, because we have all those hotlines where we can report people who have gotten an abortion, or we're going to ban all contraceptives, or we're going to track you, so if you get an abortion outside of the state, we can still arrest you. It can be the, hey, I broke my bone and I want to go to the hospital to get a cast. And the government can look there and be like, we don't want you specifically to get your bone fixed, you know? Or, hey, I need this life-saving surgery, but there are no donors. And someone can be like, hey, you over there, you need to donate this thing. But it's like, I don't want to. It's like, well, that's too bad. Someone else needs it, so you need to give up that organ. That's another thing that protects right to privacy, whether or not you're an organ donor or not. And whether or not you can access care. And so it's just things that we need to consider when we are approaching Supreme Court decisions. It's usually not as simple as we make it out to seem. You have to actually look at the language that was used to pass these laws, because just like the language used to pass laws through Congress or for executive orders of the president, it's never straightforward. They make all this flowery, loophole-filled and loophole-abusing language to get what they want. And it's never just straightforward. Like an infrastructure bill isn't ever just, oh, we're going to improve cities, we're going to improve highways, we're going to improve sewer systems. It usually has some other shit in there, because that's what they use to pass big bills, is they put a bunch of stuff in it for the hopes that you'll focus on one thing and not the other. Like, what was it last summer? They were trying to pass an infrastructure bill, and it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna put all this money into fixing like highways and all this kind of stuff, you know, public schools. But then it's like, oh, but anyone who is caught trying to disrupt infrastructure, including pipelines, can legally be put down. You know, so it's like, look, all of these things are going to help inner city people, and they're going to improve transportation and make it more accessible for everybody. But also, they can kill water protectors because they put pipelines there as also part of infrastructure, even though we're not benefiting from it from any way. And so that's what you have to look at. You have to look at the legal wording of these decisions and of these laws, because there's usually a lot more there than what they say they are. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening to my rant. I hope some of that made sense to you. Almost the end of the year, my first year of college. Kind of freaking out about that because time moves so much faster than I think it is. It's also really sunny out. So thank you guys for being here with me. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. It's so long, and thanks for all the fish.